Good morning, my dear friends. I hope you are all keeping fine. Hope your studies are going well and you are healthy and safe. A couple of weeks ago, we discussed the famous poem of Robert Frost, Mending Wall. I hope the first part we discussed in the last class. I hope you are listening to the classes that comes in the TV and YouTube. This lesson, the rest of the poem we discussed today. Mending Wall. The first part you remember, the poet, along with his neighbor, mending their boundary wall, and the thoughts that goes in the mind of the poet, and the nature of the poet, and the nature of the neighbor. That's all we discussed in the last class. And we come to the second and the final paragraph. The poet continues sharing his thoughts while they were repairing the wall. We begin. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Here, poet thinks that is spring, normally the time of spring season. After the winter season comes the spring season. The spring season is a time for all mending, repairing, planting, or so spring is a mischief in me. And I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Now, we have seen the first paragraph, the idea or the vision of the neighbor. He always says, good fences make good neighbors. And he always stinging on the saying of his father, or which he heard from his father. He is so adamant and not ready to change. So the poet thinks, I think I can put a notion, an idea into his head. I can make him to think. That's what the poet thinks. I wonder if I could put a notion, an idea, notion means idea, in his head. Or I can make him to think. What? Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it? Where there are cows, but there are no cows. Now, poet thinks, neighbors says what? Good fences make good neighbors. Now, poet asked him, why do they make good neighbors? How do they make good neighbors? If there are cows, natural. It may get into neighbor's land and eat the plants there. But there are no cows. നെയ്ബറിനും പശുക്കളില്ല, പോയറ്റിനും പശുക്കളില്ല. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒരിക്കലും പശുക്കൾ അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും കയറി അവരുടെ പ്ലാന്റ്സ് തിന്നില്ല. പിന്നെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഈ വാൾ ഓർ ഫെൻസ് ഗുഡ് നെയ്ബേഴ്സിനെ സൃഷ്ടിക്കുന്നത്? പോയറ്റ് ആസ്ക്ഡ് ടു ഹിം ഓർ ടു ദ നെയ്ബർ. അതിനൊന്നും നെയ്ബർക്ക് വ്യക്തമായിട്ടൊരു ആൻസർ ഇല്ല. Before I built a wall, I would ask to know what I was walling in or walling out. It's natural. So before we build a wall or we make a wall, poet says we must know what we are walling in and what we are walling out. I told you that there are dual purpose for a wall. Wall prevents many things or something that prevents from getting inside. Okay, outside things won't get inside if there's a wall. At the same time, wall has got the same purpose that all those things which are inside should not get out. That's the dual purpose of the wall. നമ്മളൊരു മതിൽ കെട്ടിയാൽ പുറമേ നിന്നുള്ളതൊന്നും അകത്തോട്ട് വരാതിരിക്കാനും അകത്തുള്ളതൊന്നും പുറത്തു പോകാതിരിക്കാനും ഈ രണ്ട് ഫംഗ്ഷനും വാൾ ഉപകരിക്കും. നമ്മൾ ഒരു പശുവൊന്നും കയറാതെ വേലി കെട്ടുമ്പോൾ വേലിക്കകത്ത് നിൽക്കുന്ന പശു പുറത്തോട്ടും പോവില്ല, പുറത്ത് നിൽക്കുന്ന അകത്തോട്ടും വരില്ല. അങ്ങനെയാണ് വേലി കെട്ടുക. അപ്പം ഡുവൽ പർപ്പസ് ആണ് ഒരു വാളിന്. ഇറ്റ് സെർവ്സ് ടു പർപ്പസ്, വാളിംഗ് ഇൻ ആൻഡ് വാളിംഗ് ഔട്ട്. Okay, we must know. ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വരാതിരിക്കാനും അങ്ങോട്ട് പോകാതിരിക്കാനും. Walling in and walling out. So when we make a wall, we must know what we are walling in or what we are preventing from coming inside, and what we are walling out, what we are preventing from going out. So we must know when we make a wall. This idea poet shares to the neighbor. So because neighbor is clinging on that there should be a wall. Neighbor is so adamant that wall is necessary. That is why poet tries to make him to think what he is walling in and what he is walling out. And to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. And poet, by evaluating or by seeing the wall broken here and there, poet says that there is something that doesn't love the wall. Nature ആയിരിക്കാം, unknown factor ആയിരിക്കാം, but there is something that doesn't love the wall. That is why that makes the wall break here and there. There is something that doesn't love the wall. He doesn't know exactly what is that something, but there is something. Maybe creatures, maybe nature, maybe climate, whatever may be. There is something that doesn't love the wall. So poet calls it that wants it down. And that something wants the wall to be down. There is something that doesn't love the wall. That something wants the wall to be broken. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് വാൾ അവിടെ ഇവിടെയൊക്കെ പൊട്ടിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. There is something. ആരൊക്കെ വാൾ ഇഷ്ടമല്ല, ആരൊക്കെ എന്തിനോ വാൾ ഇഷ്ടമല്ല. അവയാണ് അത് നശിപ്പിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നത്. Okay. I could say elves. Elves ചിലപ്പോൾ elves ആയിരിക്കും. Elves means spirits, unknown factors. Spirit, അന്ധകാര ശക്തികൾ എന്ന് വേണേൽ പറയാം. Spirit, അങ്ങനെ എന്തോ ഒന്ന്. ബട്ട് എക്സാക്ട്ലി വി കൻ സേ പോയിട്ട് ഒരു അസംഷൻ പറയാണ്, ചിലപ്പോൾ ചില അന്ധകാര ശക്തികളായിരിക്കാം സ്പിരിറ്റ്സ്. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് മേക്സ് ദ വാൾ ഡൗൺ. But it's not else exactly, and I would rather he said it for himself. I see him there. Okay, maybe else ചിലപ്പോൾ ആയിരിക്കില്ലായിരിക്കാം. Okay, so then when he possesses this, what he says, I see him there, bringing a stone grabbed firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. So when the author tries to put a notion, an idea into the head of the neighbor that a wall is not necessary there. When author tries to put that idea, but neighbor is not listening to that. But what neighbor does, he brings a big stone and putting on the wall. So by seeing that, the poet says he is like an old savage armed. Savage armed means a man who lives in an Paleolithic age. പുരാതന കാലത്ത് ജീവിക്കുന്ന ഒരു മനുഷ്യനെ പോലെ. A man who lives in Paleolithic age or Stone Age. Stone Age. ശിലായുഗത്തിലെ മനുഷ്യനെ പോലെ അയാൾ ഇതാ ഒരു കല്ലും പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട്. He says that the neighbor is not ready to accept any change. Some people are like that in the society. They are not at all ready to accept any change. They always live in their own idea. They won't accept any ideas from outside to themselves. They only cling on or stinging on or remaining on the idea which they have. They are not ready to change. They are so adamant, so hard, so nervous, or so narrow in their vision. They are not ready to make any change. So narrow vision people, not at all ready to accept others' idea. So he is criticizing people who are like that, who are not at all ready to make any change in their life, or not at all ready to accept anyone else's idea. They always live in with their own idea. So our neighbor is like that character. His character is like that. He is not ready to listen to what the poet shares. Or poet tried his best to make him to think or make him to understand that the wall is not at all necessary there. But neighbor is like an old stone savage armed, old uh, a man who lived in old stone age. Neighbor is like that. You can see a simile. Look, in each hand, like an old, since like is there, it is a simile is used. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me. He moves in darkness, not of wood only, and the shade of trees. There are trees, so naturally there may be a shade and darkness. But actually, the darkness here means ignorance. The neighbor lives in ignorance. That is why he is adamant. He is not ready to change because he lives in ignorance. Darkness is always refers to ignorance. When light comes, light is knowledge, wisdom, knowledge. When it comes, darkness faded away. So he is living in ignorance. That is why he is not ready to accept any change. So author is criticizing him. Author failed to make him to understand his idea, but author completely failed. That's why he called him a savage. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. He will not go behind his father's saying. That means he is not ready to make any change. He will remain till his death on his father's saying. What his father always says to him, good fences make good neighbors. That is what he has inherited from his father. The saying, good fences make good neighbors. He is not ready to make any change on his concept. Here it means that he is so adamant, so narrow, that he is not ready to make any changes in his life. That is why author calls him a man who lives in ignorance. Or in society too, we see many people who are not ready to accept others at all. That means, or who are not ready to may accept any modern changes. We know that as the time goes, so many changes takes place in our vision. നമ്മുടെ കാഴ്ചപ്പാടുകൾ കാലങ്ങൾ മാറുന്നതനുസരിച്ച് നമ്മുടെ കാഴ്ചപ്പാടുകൾ മാറണം. സൊസൈറ്റി മാറണം. കാലങ്ങൾ മാറുന്നതനുസരിച്ച് സൊസൈറ്റി മാറും, കാഴ്ചപ്പാടുകൾ മാറും. പക്ഷെ അങ്ങനെ മാറാത്ത ആൾക്കാർ, അവരെയാണ് ഇവിടെ പോയറ്റ് വിമർശിക്കുന്നത്. പോയറ്റ് സെസ് അവർ ഇഗ്നോറൻസിലാണ്, അവർ ഡാർക്ക്നെസ്സിലാണ്, അവർ ഒരു കാരണവശാലും ഒരു ചേഞ്ചിന് തയ്യാറല്ല. അവരൊരിക്കലും മറ്റുള്ളവരുടെ ഐഡിയ സ്വീകരിക്കാൻ തയ്യാറല്ല. സോ അവർ നെയ്ബർ ഈസ് ടിപ്പിക്കൽ. He has concluded the poem on again with the neighbor's words. Good fences make good neighbors. That's what his neighbor always says. From the beginning till the end, the neighbor remained on his vision. He is not at all ready to change. The poem ends there. You go through the poem. Robert Frost poems are always I said, simple. You will definitely understand a simple theme, a theme which is well known to us is being shared through this poem.